Today, I shall teach you chapter number 8, His First Flight, written by Liam O'Flaherty. Now, before I begin with the chapter, let me give you a brief note on the author. Liam O'Flaherty was a major Irish novelist, short story writer, and must be ranked as one of the foremost socialist writers in the first part of the 20th century, writing about the common people's experience and from their perspectives. He was born on 28th August 1896 at Inishmore, Ireland, and died on 7th September 1984 at Dublin, Ireland. In 1916, he joined the British Army as a member of the Irish Guards as William Ganley, using his mother's surname. Then, serving on the Western Front, he was badly injured in 1917 at the battlefield and was discharged in 1918. He returned from the front a socialist. Having become interested in Marxism as a schoolboy, he later became the founder member of the first Communist Party of Ireland in 1921. Among his English works, some novels like Thy Neighbour's Wife, The Informer, Return of the Brute are worth mentioning. Apart from novels, he wrote political satires, social satires, and short stories. He was a writer of extraordinary storytelling ability and powers of observation. So, students, this was something about the author himself, Liam O'Flaherty. Now, the chapter we will be dealing with today is one of his noted works. It's a short story and it can be called a parable also. The story, His First Flight, is about a young seagull who is afraid to fly. All his younger siblings have learned to fly fearlessly, while this young seagull could not gather the courage to trust his own wings. Now, let us begin the story and find out how he could make his first flight. Now, before going into the text of the chapter, let me go through the introductory part of this chapter in your textbook, Bliss. Now, this is an abridged version of his short story. And as I told you that this is a story about a young seagull. The story focuses on how fear must be conquered before one may achieve anything of significance, like the young seagull who had to be brave in order to fly. Now let us begin the chapter. The young seagull was alone on his ledge. Now, let me tell you what is a seagull or who is a seagull. Now, seagull is a bird that lives near the sea. It has short legs and long wings, and its feathers are generally white and grey in color. Now, the main protagonist of this story, the main character of this story is the young seagull. And here it is seen that he was alone on the ledge. Now, what's the meaning of ledge? Ledge is a flat rock surface coming out of a cliff. It's high above the sea. His two brothers and his sister had already flown away the day before. That means they have already learned the art of flying. He had been afraid to fly with them. Now, this young seagull could not gather courage to make an attempt to fly. When he had run forward to the brink of the ledge, he became afraid. Now, it is seen that when this young seagull somewhat tries to fly and comes at the edge of the ledge, he becomes frightened. He becomes nervous. And then, once again, he loses his courage. The great expanse of the sea stretched down beneath, and it was miles down. And from the cliff, as I told you, it was high above the sea. And from that ledge, if somebody sees beneath, somebody sees under what is there, there is the sea much, much beneath the cliff. And it is said that the sea was miles down. So you can well imagine how much courage it would require for a very young seagull just to make an attempt to fly, try to fly. He felt certain that his wings would never support him. And this was really a very tragic and a sad situation for this young seagull. We can well understand because sometimes in our lives also we face some challenges or we face some problems in which we cannot gather courage or we cannot be brave enough to overcome the challenge, to overcome the problem or the trouble in our lives. Such is the situation for this young seagull also. He is very much nervous. So he bent his head and ran away back to the little hole where he slept at night. So losing his courage once again, he goes back to his hole to sleep in peace. His father and mother had come around calling to him shrilly, but for the life of him, he could not move. Now his parents were trying hard to make him try to fly at least, but he could not gather the courage, so he did not move. That was 24 hours ago, means one day. Since then, nobody had come near him. Now this was, one type of making him desperate, that nobody was coming near him, and nobody was just not nobody, it was his family members. He was completely left alone on that ledge. The day before, he had watched his parents flying about with his brothers and sister. They were teaching them the art of flight and how to dive for fish. Now, for the birds, it's very important to fly because as we human beings or the other animals, they can run, they can fight, they can walk to bring their food to themselves. For food, for satisfying the hunger, birds have to fly. And this was the reason why his parents, the young seagull's parents, were trying for him to teach him the art of flight so that he can procure his own food. He had seen his elder brother catch his first herring while his parents circled around proudly. Now, this was really a moment of achievement for this young seagull's elder brother. Why? Because it was the first time in his life that he had caught his first fish. Herring is a fish. It's a generally fairly small silvery fish. And for this, his parents were very much proud. At least some of their children have learned the art of flight. Now the day was nearing. The sun was now ascending the sky, means it was turning from dawn to day, blazing warmly on his ledge that faced the south. He felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. Can you imagine the situation of these young seagull girls? It was really pathetic. It was really very sad that nobody was coming near him, neither his parents nor his siblings. He was left completely alone just to get his own food, and he was dying of hunger. Now, there was not a single scrap of food left in the straw nest, and there was not a little bit of food left over for him to survive on. His little grey body trotted back and forth on the ledge. Now, this sentence gives us the feeling and also indicates the nervousness of this small young seagull. What to do and what not to do. He was dying of hunger, but still he could not gather courage to try to fly. Because if he wants his food, if he wants his fish, he had to dive at it. And diving at it means learning to fly. And that was really very tough and difficult for this young seagull. He was trying to find some means of reaching his parents without having to fly. Now he was searching some means, other means birds, other means of flying means either running or walking. But it was not at all possible for him to run or walk on the ledge and reach his parents, because he was left completely alone on the ledge and his parents were far away from him. But on each side of him, the ledge ended in a sheer fall with the sea beneath. And from the cliff, whenever he saw beneath, he saw the green sea, and he could not move forward. He could surely reach them without flying if he could only move northwards along the cliff. And that was not very convenient, and he was not at all comfortable in that. He thought that it was easier for him to run to his parents rather than trying to fly. But then on, what could he walk? There was no ledge, and he was not a fly. This was completely impossible for him. He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge. He stood on one leg with the other leg hidden under his wing. This was a situation that was to pretend that he was falling asleep. Closing one eye and then the other, he pretended to be falling asleep. Now see the condition, the wretched condition of this young seagull. He was desperately trying to get notice from his parents so that he could get some food. Still, his parents took no notice of him. They were trying to pretend that they were not noticing him. He saw his two brothers and his sister lying on the plateau. They were dozing with their heads sunk into their wings. They were trying to fall asleep. His father was preening his feathers on his white back. Preening means clean its feathers. Now, only his mother was looking at him. Now, each and every family member of this young seagull was busy in different activities. Only the mother was looking at him. She was standing a little high hump on the plateau, eating a piece of fish. Now, this was really an incident that gives us a message that mothers desperately want their children to learn to survive. And this was how this young seagull's mother was also up to. She was trying to get notice from her child that he would look at the piece of fish and, maddened by hunger, out of hunger, he would dive at the fish. The sight of the food maddened him, and this was really obvious because he was dying of hunger, and the sight of the piece of fish drove him mad. "Gee gaga," he cried, begging her to bring him some food. "Gola," she screamed back. Now, this was a sort of conversation between the mother and the child in their own language. He kept calling, and after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. His mother had picked up a piece of fish and was flying across to him with it. Now, this was a condition the child, the young seagull, was waiting for, that his mother would notice him, and that he was falling asleep on the ledge, and that he was dying of hunger. All this situation would be noticed by his mother, and his mother would come to him rushing with the piece of fish. But the next subsequent situation will be something very different. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted, her wings motionless. Isn't it very surprising, girls? Isn't it very contradictory to what we thought? We had thought that the mother would rush to him with a piece of fish and she would give the fish to her child. But no, the situation was contradictory to that. She came near him, but not so close that he could be able to take the piece of fish from her. Her wings motionless. She was not flying. The piece of fish in her beak was almost within reach of his beak. Now see the condition. It was almost within reach, but it was not at all reachable. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer. Now he was dying of hunger, and still his mother was standing at a little distance from him with the food in her beak. He thought, but then, maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. This was what the mother wanted, that he would dive at the fish and get his own fish, and then he would learn to fly. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space. A vast void, a vast outer space, he was falling. Then terror seized him and his heart stood still. He was terrified. He was petrified. He could not understand what was going on. What did he do? And he was falling from that cliff into this vast open space. But it only lasted a moment. A beautiful sentence. It only lasted a moment. What lasted for a moment? That terror, that fear lasted a moment. And then he overcome his fear that he could not fly. Now he realized that he was flying. The next moment he felt his wings spread outwards. The wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under the stomach and against his wings. How beautiful the picture is. He was flying. Ultimately, lastly, he could fly. He could make his first flight. He was feeling the air, the wind against his feathers. He could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. He was not falling headlong now. He was soaring gradually downwards and outwards. Now he was soaring. Now soaring means rising very quickly, but here in this situation we see that he was falling downwards, and a beautiful adjective is being used, a beautiful verb is being used. He was soaring gradually downwards. He was no longer afraid. He was not in fear anymore. He had lost all his nervousness. He had lost all his tension and fear of falling down. Then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards. Then he was very easily flapping his wings, the things his parents had wanted. Then he flapped his wings and soared upwards. He uttered a joyous scream and flapped them again. He was very, very happy. He was overwhelmed with joy. He was very joyous. He soared higher. His mother flew past him, her wings making a loud noise. Now his mother was very happy that her child had learned the art of flying. He answered her with another scream. He was literally talking to her. Then his father flew over him screaming. Then he saw his two brothers and his sister flying around him. Now all the family members were circling around him, and every family member of this young seagull was in ecstasy. He saw a vast green sea beneath him, and he turned his beak sideways and crowed amusedly. He was very happy. His herd was amused. His parents and his brothers and sister had landed on his green floor in front of him. Now this green floor means the color of the sea seems to be green from a height. They were beckoning to him. They were using signals to call him, calling shrilly. He dropped his legs to stand on the green sea. Now see the different acrobatics the acrobatic techniques he was using. It was really very interesting. His feet sank into the sea, and then his belly touched it, and he sank no further. Now this was really an important achievement for this young seagull. He earlier had the nervousness of falling down, but he learned the art of flying. He did not fall. He soared high up. He flapped his wings. He could open up his wings and close, consequently. And now he could touch the water of the sea, and he did not sink. He was floating on it. Isn't it marvelous, girls? Isn't it very miraculous? And around him, his family was screaming, praising him. A beautiful scenario that every family member was praising, was, appreciating the task he had done today. He had made his first flight. Now, I hope you have understood the beautiful prose piece, and literally this story does have a message. The message that we get from this chapter is we have to have motivation, self-confidence, and self-reliance to overcome any challenge in our lives. That's all, and thank you.